Our guest this week, Bluegrass and folk music band, the Pine Hearts. We've got a very special show for you folks. Let's go. Hey everybody, thank you so much for listening to a very special show. I'm your host, Kevin McManus, and as always, I am super mega hyper pleased that I'm the guy who gets to lead you through this exploration of the creative process. We decided to take the week off last week in order to divert all attention to the Black Lives Matter movement. I want to state clearly, for me personally and for this show in general, that Black Lives Matter. We are allies for this movement, and we stand firmly on the side of social justice, liberty, and freedom for all. I want to talk a little bit about what I participated in last week. I went dark on social media. I changed my profile picture to a black image, and I elected to quiet my personal thoughts in order to help elevate the voices of black people. The first thing I began to read about was the performative action of simply going dark and staying silent when we should all be speaking up and speaking out is probably not the best method to help this movement, so I decided to turn my social media into a mini megaphone to share the stories and struggles of black people. The goal was to listen to hear rather than to listen to speak, and here is what I heard. Black people and their allies are angry as hell, but they do not hate anyone. To hate injustice is to be wholly human and humane. The police system and our systems of government here in the United States were designed, funded, and continue to be guided by a racist hand. That's not to say all operators within that system are racist, but that the system itself is racist. We can change that. First, it will take a reckoning by white America. We have benefited from the system. We are not the target of the system. Black people are the victims of this system. They are human beings and our brothers and sisters, and we must stand with them. Protest is like art. Not unlike a Jackson Pollock or Jean-Michel Basquiat painting, the ordered chaos is enlightening. The canvas contains a complete story. Splatters and depictions of violence are part of the work, but so are the fine strokes and genius techniques. Where the audience chooses to place its attention becomes the zeitgeist. The word riot is an interpretation that can and has been weaponized in an attempt to crush movements. People must never be written off when they rise together to fight for change, positive change in their communities. Don't let them tell you that the violence is all there is. And one of the last things I learned about was theater. My beloved art form, a place I have always believed was safe and progressive and inclusive, has a lot of racism to overcome itself. Some of the issues I learned about didn't just have to do with casting, which is one of the glaring and obvious issues we have, but it was with the practices of hiring for permanent employment, the roles of leadership within the organizations, where we place our companies and build our theaters, and the oppressive terms and language our art form carries with it still to this day. These are things I have participated in, and quite frankly, I was willfully unaware, and no longer will that be the case. I pledge as a performer, as a director, as an artistic director, as an artist, to be an actively engaged anti-racist. My efforts, endeavors, and projects will always include self-evaluation and honest introspection to ensure that I am a part of the new world, a world of equity and equality and maximum inclusion and safety for all. I sincerely hope that you will make a similar pledge. Get educated, find resources to clear out those cobwebs of old thinking. BlackLivesMatter.com is a great place to start. We will include some other links on a very special show.com. We can do this together, united. Please join the movement, and please enjoy this episode of a very special show.
All the lights are almost gone, and the sun's already down. A summer night when the streets hold in the heat, the stars are up above the town.
This is the Pine Hearts, your special guests this week. We've got Joey, Derek, and Dean, the trio from Olympia, Washington. How you guys doing?
Good, doing pretty fun so far.
Great. Times are a-changin'. The protests are raging outside. I hope everybody in our audience is safe, and I hope you guys are safe as well. And I know that you guys were talking about, a little bit about that. If you had any thoughts you wanted to share about it, you're welcome to do that on this podcast. But I have a few questions for you as well, and I'd like to start there. So first and foremost, it is the Pine Hearts. And the pine heart refers to the heartwood of a pine tree, which is the non-living center of the tree trunk. Thanks, Google. What led you to choose this name for the band?
We live in the Pacific Northwest, and there are pine trees everywhere. I didn't know this earlier, but the Doug fir and the hemlock are all pine trees, so it's regional for us, and it's something, a part of nature that we love.
And how did the trio itself come to be? Like, how did the band originally form? I've seen that it's changed a bit over the years. Members have come along and others have gone away. What brought you three, Joey, Derek, and Dean, together to form this trio?
You know, we're just, I would say it's as simple as Olympia is a small town and everyone knows everybody, and I knew Derek and we knew Dean, and there's plenty of people you play with over the years where it just doesn't really connect. It doesn't really work. But the three of us connected, and we sit in a van well. We enjoy each other's company, and that's a rarity.
I think it goes, just to like add a little to that, I think it goes back. Joey and I used to play in a different band also called the Old Mountain Boys. And
yes.
We were playing a gig in Seattle one time, and we needed a fill-in guitar player to play for this big annual Kentucky Derby party that was thrown. And we needed a guitar player, and Joey filled in, and that's really where Joey and I first got to know each other pretty well. And then we started just kind of jamming, just kind of private, like just hanging out. And then it led to Joe and Lob and I kind of forming the band early on. And there's a bunch of people that have kind of come and gone from the band. It's kind of morphed. Joe could definitely talk more about that. And then during the morphing, Dean and I had met, and then Dean kind of came along, and I was kind of exiting the band briefly. So it's kind of a torrent of people coming and going a little bit. But
yeah, it was kind of quite a cyclone. As I recall, I met you guys at the bar down the street. I think we first jammed with me playing electric bass and the two of y'all playing mandolin and guitar, just wicked drunk in my living room. But yeah, there came a night when these two guys whispered in my ear that I was a fine enough electric player somehow to play with these two, but that I just needed to find myself an upright bass, and they would have some work for me pretty much immediately. So I woke up the next morning with a crushing headache and decided to go and blow all of my savings on an upright bass. And I think I joined the Pine Hearts officially like about 2 weeks after that.
That's fantastic. Most bands, I imagine, around this area probably came together in those small circles of recording and musician groups here in town. In the bluegrass genre, there is a supremely rural sensibility that is ever present in the lyrics and the music. I pulled a quote from your website. It says, "Just beneath the eaves of Washington's Cascade Mountains, the Pine Hearts are combing the woods, ore and soul to channel the colossal organic spirit of the untamed Pacific Northwest." Where did this deep love for the bluegrass, rural, organic aesthetic come from? I mean, I know that we live among it, so it's pretty easy to get into start adoring this area. But where did the bluegrass come from in this band?
I think it's more like almost putting the cart before the horse, where I think all of us like all kinds of music, but it's so easy to, I don't want to sound lazy, but it's just so easy to play an acoustic guitar for myself. I mean, I have an electric guitar and an electric guitar amp, and I love the drums and all that stuff, but it's just so easy to pick up an acoustic guitar and play whenever, and I love that about it. It just kind of lends itself to bluegrass.
Yeah, I agree. That was something that kind of really drew me to this genre as well, the fact that you just pick up one instrument and you can immediately be playing music with other people. And so to me, it just always felt like a very conversational way to play, especially when you have two other folks who speak the language really well. So that was kind of what drew me to this whole genre of music.
There was a very popular bluegrass festival for many years in Rainier, and I grew up with the bluegrass genre in my world, and there's just something so appealing about a mandolin and a banjo, and they're just wailing away at like high speed, and the lyrics are just going, and you're like, they're washing over you. It's really exciting to sit in the audience during a bluegrass concert. As a Pacific Northwesterner, as I just said, I know that kind of sense, that deep love of our home, and I've never quite found a way to describe this place in any way that does justice. As lyricists and songwriters, does this place, does where you're making this music affect you, and what makes this place so drawing and special?
Well, I mean, yeah, of course, as absolutely does. As any place would. Even beyond music, it's just a place to call home and a place to live. I'm originally from the East Coast, and I came out here in 1998, and it captured me pretty quick, and my love of the forest and being out camping, and there's something really special about Pacific Northwest, and I think we're all really lucky to live here, sharing it. Sharing its magic and wonders. But it's true, and of course that inspires you, and it's just the same way if you lived in a city in the Midwest. You'd have songs about that. I think it's impossible to not have your environment influence your songwriting, and we're lucky enough to have our environment be the Northwest.
Did each of you grow up in musical households, or are you like the first artists, musicians of your household?
I don't necessarily come from a line of artists exactly, but a lot of folks in my family pick up side passions for a lot of visual art. I have a lot of painters in my family, and a handful of musicians kind of sprinkled throughout, especially like a number of my older cousins, and my mother as well is a really wonderful country guitar player by hobby. So I just kind of grew up with a handful of like older cousins that I thought were really cool. They'd tell me that they play in a band once in a while. And growing up, I could often hear my mom just practicing in her room, playing some old, she loved blues in particular, a lot of Chris Smither. And so it was kind of always around me. Plus, my dad loved to waste his time listening to, Frank Zappa and 10cc and a lot of the old psych rock, which I've only come to appreciate really as an adult now. Couldn't stand it for years. I think it was just oversaturation or something.
Right.
But I was always surrounded by folks who were really passionate about what they did, who would find these really neat ways to express themselves and to have those things to share with other people. So I think it did kind of rub off on me over the years.
And what about the other two?
So this is Derek. I have actually sort of like my immediate household, I was the only one who sought out playing music. And I didn't really know much about the history of but turns out I had a bunch of ancestors who were way back uncles that were professional musicians, and on both sides of my family. So
Wow.
I guess the genes were there, but my parents are not at all, and my sister was not. And then by the time I was in 4th grade, I started just playing violin in the school orchestra and was just kind of a strings player and really liked it. And then when I was about 12, I met up with a woman here in Olympia named Barbara Collins. I don't know if you know her. She's a phenomenal violinist and teacher and friend. And she started teaching me old-time fiddle music. And then I sort of forgotten about it and kind of just got more interested in other things and went off to college. And then literally by the way of Grateful Dead, which led me to Jerry Garcia's Bluegrass music, which led me to David Grisman, which led me to Bill Monroe. So definitely arrived at Bluegrass by way of the Grateful Dead, even though I don't feel like it influences my playing all that much. So I'm probably I spent the most time playing straight up traditional bluegrass music and at really straight bluegrass festivals, I think, out of the three of us. I think. I don't know about
have me schooled in bluegrass.
I think you're right.
Absolutely.
And I sort of like when we have a fiddle tune that we approach, a lot of times I'll kind of I'll do a melody and Joey will I'll do a recording of a melody, and then Joey one day will have it mimicked, and then we can do these solos together and things like that. So,
oh, wow. And all three of you sing.
Yeah.
And you guys mix really well together, I think. Joey, what about you? Did you grow up in a musical household as well, or are you kind of the first generation artist?
My mom was I don't want to say strict. She wasn't strict, but she was very adamant that I have 3 siblings, and she was very adamant that we all did art, and we all, we had a corner in the basement where it was called dress-up clothes. We could dress up in different characters, and then there was the arts and crafts corner where we had colored sand and glue and paint, and we could make big messes we wanted as long as we were doing art instead of watching TV. We all had to pick, it didn't matter which instrument, but we all had to, she played piano, my mom. We all had to, myself and my 3 siblings, it didn't matter what instrument we played, but we had to choose an instrument, and we had to practice 30 minutes a day, and she would time us. And so I still have nightmare memories of that, playing my first instrument, violin, and she would set a timer, and I had to play. She would listen, so you have to play for a half hour. You have to get there. Same with my siblings as well, but they've all pretty much, they can all play something a little bit, but they've pursued other interests. I'm the only one who's stuck with it.
What I just took away from that is, if you want your child to grow up to be a bluegrass lead singer or some sort of multi-talented person, make sure that they practice the violin for at least 20 or 30 minutes every day. But it will give them nightmares. So, I mean, that...
Yeah.
You have to be sort of committed to being emotionally scarred most of your life if you're going to do it, So, one of those things.
So when all this, I mean, there's a lot going on now. So I mean, like I said, there's the protests going on, the murder of George Floyd. That's happening in the background of this interview. But before that, and still currently, we are dealing with a massive shutdown of the economy and of artists' work and the places where artists perform. And were you guys working on any projects that were put on hold?
Oh, yeah. We had an entire tour planned that got it all canceled. We were supposed to travel the entire western United States, and we had done all the work pretty much to put in, and Joey was out of the country for a while, so we were on a hold, and we were just anxiously waiting. And our very first show starting back up was scheduled for Saturday, March 14th in Portland. Big discussion is like, should we not? Should we go down there? Should we not? Obviously, we erred on the side of caution to not. It was the right thing, but we still haven't played, except for some live stuff, which we're grateful for being able to do.
We've got something coming up in just a little bit. We'll talk a bit more about that in a moment. As the counties are opening up, I'm wondering, are they letting you perform soon? Is there anything planned?
Nothing planned just yet, I don't believe. A lot of places, I think, still feel like they're kind of in a gray area, like they're hesitant to book something a month or two out just because they have no idea if they will be permitted to be open or not.
Right.
So I think everybody's kind of in a holding pattern right now.
One of the big things I think that we face, and I know like definitely club owners face too, is like you have the point at which it can be safe to resume, and then people can now get comfortable with that. But then there's going to be another point that it's like, when will it be financially feasible to even do?
Right.
Because there's that too. You have to have enough people willing to come hang out. So there'll be a little of that. But I mean, we've played the empty rooms, we've played the full rooms. We'll do it all.
What we've done is take this time of not playing shows to get together in our, quarantine fashion, and we recorded a demo for our new album. So we kind of shifted our focus. We thought, okay, we can't play shows, so instead of that, let's start working on the next album. I actually just got back a couple hours ago from mixing that down, so we have not the official album, but we recorded a demo of the album that we'd like to record so we can shop that around. So we've made good use of our time putting that all together.
Very true, yes.
We'll be right back with the Pine Hearts after the break.
It's all strip malls until you reach the city. Then it's strip malls again. Then the strip malls disappear.
Do you own or manage a local business? Are you looking for affordable access to a large, diverse customer base? Advertise your products and services here on a very special show. We provide a variety of opportunities for small local businesses to speak directly to our ever-growing audience of engaged, discerning listeners. We never take a one-size, one-price-fits-all approach. We tailor your marketing experience to suit your needs. Interested in knowing more? Visit averyspecialshow.com and use the contact form to tell us what you are looking for. We've got episodes going live every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Keep loving, keep creating.
Hey Becca, what you reading? Hey Becky, I just picked up the newest edition of Oly Arts. Oly Arts? What's that? Oly Arts is the South Puget Sound's premier multi-platform arts publication. They've got lots of great stuff in here about performance, music, visual arts, and other cool cultural events happening right here in our town. They've got bi-monthly print editions, daily online content, occasional podcasts, and enhanced mobile experiences. Oly Arts is the guide to local arts and culture.
Wow, you sure know a lot about Oly Arts.
That's because we're in an ad right now.
Wait, what?
Visit olyarts.org for your expertly curated guide to the arts.
We're in an ad right now?
That's olyarts.org.
I thought we were just getting together for tea.
Now back to a very special show.
So, no tea?
Killing time. Wait until you got home. You said, alright, fine, it'd be okay. If that's what you want to do, you can drive all the way and visit me. That's what I want to do.
you guys were talking about a tour. Do you guys do a lot of touring in normal circumstances, or was this about to be, you know, kind of the first big tour for you guys?
We have historically toured a lot. Like 40, 50 long.
Yeah, I think last year we drove nearly 30,000 miles.
Wow. So you're going to the festivals and you're going to different venues and things like that. You probably play a bunch of festivals, I imagine.
Yes.
That's
That's my
right,
favorite
yeah.
thing. It's the best. It's the most fun, for sure.
I noticed that one of your pictures on your website is from behind, and there's this huge crowd of people in front of you, and it seems like it must be at a festival of some kind because it's, you know, the production value is, I mean, you got the big stage and all that stuff. Do you guys, what do you guys prefer? Do you like the small rooms with the more intimate setting, or do you like the big stage and the huge audiences and the festival atmosphere?
So I love both. I'm a sucker for both. Yeah.
Yeah, I am as well. Ultimately, I love to just see a lot, you know, any number of folks there to see music, like, with intention. You know, when you can feel that folks really want to be there and they're having fun, like, watching your show. You can get that feeling from 3 people in a dive bar, or sometimes you can get really lucky and get that from a few thousand people at a big festival someplace. Like that photo you're describing was at the Telluride Bluegrass Festival last summer, I believe. Yeah, and so that photo was taken during the finals of the band contest. We were fortunate enough to not only be able to enter the competition, but advance to the finals as well. That was a photo during a performance that ultimately let us take home 3rd place overall. Yeah, it was a pretty special morning.
We were literally like the most nervous we've ever been in our lives in that photo, probably.
Well, that was a huge crowd. That was massive. I was really impressed with that. I mean, you know, I'm sure you guys pull a good crowd no matter what, but I mean, that just looked like an interesting experience for sure. So I don't know if you guys know this, but I have 2 questions that I ask of every guest that comes on the show, and I'd like to go through each of you, and we'll start with the first question. What do you struggle with? And Joey, go ahead and start it off.
Guitar playing.
Okay.
I've been struggling with that my whole life.
And Derek, what do you struggle with?
Honestly, my answer is similar to Joe's. I would say playing the mandolin, but to explain it further, I guess, to be really honest, just self-doubt. Like, am I practicing enough? Am I working hard enough? Am I improving enough? What can I do better? I struggle with letting go and taking a breath once in a while.
And Dean?
Regularly, I find myself kind of struggling with understanding that this thing that I've loved to do for my whole life, like, not only can be like a viable career, but also that they can be treated as separate things. I feel like a lot of folks talk about, like, burning out and getting tired of the music business. To be fair, there are a lot of really difficult sides of that. And I sometimes find myself, like, taking that home, so to speak, and, like, worrying too much about the business side and letting it affect my love for playing. So I work really hard to try and keep in perspective that, like, this is a really lovely way to spend my time, and that it can be a business, which is really cool, but also to just keep sight of the fact that this is really just, like, not only a wonderful conversation tool, but just, like, a really beautiful form of art to be involved with. It's kind of a hard thing to keep perspective on, so I work really hard on maintaining that in my life and being grateful for getting to do what I do.
Is this your guys' full-time job, then? If you're touring around and spending 50 days on the road, I'm wondering, do you have the kind of jobs that provide you with that luxury, or is this the way that you make the lion's share of your money?
Yeah, I think pretty much it is. I mean, I think most musicians you'll find have some kind of little side hustle.
I certainly do.
Yeah, when the touring's good and you can be out there, it certainly is the thing that we do with the majority of our time, for sure.
Far closer to full-time than not. I keep a little bit of on-call work with a farming job, which, you know, in the little gaps between tours can help keep the lights on in my house. But otherwise, like, I'd say that probably 3/4 of my income comes from this, and I suppose that's pretty close to full-time.
It gives you a little bluegrass cred, too, because you're a farmer, but your love is the bluegrass. It sounds too perfect.
I do have the pretty sweet overalls to go along with the whole look, so we're getting closer.
Complete the aesthetic. So my second question that I always ask is, what is important to you? We'll go in the same order. How about we start with Joey?
In music or just in life?
You know, I'm gonna start not defining that as much, and if whatever the answer that comes to you first.
I'll tell you what, the first thing that popped in my head is cooking. I really like cooking, and
I love it.
I have to say, honestly, it's one of the hardest things about tour for me, because you're on tour, you don't have a chance to cook too much. And Dean and Derek can tell you that every morning I wake up wondering where I'm going to get my next egg and cheese sandwich. And I don't have to worry about that.
Angry if he doesn't have it.
I just make it, and we have to. But yeah, I don't know. That is one thing that really is important to me, and it's very centering for me. It's when I get home from tour, one of the ways I like to feel like I'm home and arrive is to spend 3 or 4 hours making some fancy meal, and that makes me feel like I'm home, and then I'm back in my house.
I totally feel you, man. I'm the cook of my house, and I love the process of just cutting vegetables and the angles of the cuts and all that stuff. Yeah.
No, I love it.
Totally my thing, too.
Exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And vegetables for hours.
Oh, yeah, totally. I mean, I actually probably take too long to cut the vegetables sometimes. My girl's like, hey, we're going to eat tonight, or...
It's so soothing, though. Like, you just trying to see how thin you can cut that piece of garlic.
Exactly, like a razor thin. Derek, what is important to you?
What's important to me? Honestly, so out of the band, I'm the one that has the, children and all that stuff. In all honesty, it's been tough at times to stay married and be a family guy and want to practice all the time. My important thing is that somehow I've achieved the balance of being able to practice and perform as much as I can and still be really good to my family and take care of them. I've somehow, it's taken me almost 20 years to figure that out, but I'm there, I think. So now that I said that, that'll cause it to fall apart, but just keeping a balance because I've had it put right in my face many times in my life that I have to choose between, having a family and having this passion.
I only made you do that a few times, Derek.
Dean, what is important to you?
I've always felt a really deep sense of community. I love to have my people, so to speak, but having a community of any size that can work together and offer each other things. Being a musician, I feel, is a wonderful way to just create community with a really wide range of people. And you can have a sense of community with folks who also play music, or folks who just love to sit around and watch it, or folks who are deeply involved with the lyrical side of it. It's a great way to connect with other artists who work with other mediums. And it's kind of one of the most important things in my life. I just love to be surrounded by inspiring people and situations and work really hard to keep that as a focal point of my life, which makes me feel really grateful to have an artistic skill that I can offer to folks that I consider part of my community.
Well, that is the Pine Hearts. I'd like for you guys to have just the last few minutes here. Tell people where they can find your music. If you've got any comments you'd like to make about the state of affairs, we'll go ahead and place that right here. And after they're done talking, we're going to close it down, and we are going to have a live performance. If you're not listening on YouTube right now, right after this interview, go over to YouTube, and we will be streaming their performance live on there. So go ahead, guys. It's your time right here.
Well, I wanted to mention, you brought up the protest and George Floyd. Well, I personally wanted to take a minute to say that we're behind Black Lives Matter and the family of George Floyd, everything that's going on. We're in full support of that, and our heart goes out to everyone out there protesting and doing the right thing. So I want to make sure that's said.
Yep, agreed. We're 100% committed to standing with folks of color and marginalized people in our communities and standing with them to help end, the long institutionalized police brutality and other prejudices that happen against these groups. And so doing everything we can to be helpful and understanding and supportive during these times.
I was just going to say, I echo all of that and completely am behind all of it.
Thanks again to Joey, Derek, and Dean of the Pine Hearts. Visit thepinehearts.com for more information about the band. Don't forget to log in at 8 p.m. this evening to YouTube, type in a very special show, and stream the live performance by the Pine Hearts. And as always, anchor.fm/a very special show. Click that support button as little as $1 a month, and you'll make this show possible week after week. Our guest at 7 p.m. is Seattle singer-songwriter Julia Francis. She's releasing a new single this Friday. Make sure not to miss our episode this evening at 7 p.m. We love you, audience. Take care. Keep loving and keep creating.
A whole lot of nothing when you look around. You go on about our bodies and the deep parts of the sea. Everything that science and religion just can't agree. If no one knows, that's alright with me. The oceans and the heavens and the insides of our bodies can remain a mystery. So don't let the stars bring you down, darling, don't you get lost in the dark wondering how.
Thank you so much for listening to A Very Special Show. As always, please visit averyspecialshow.com for more information about the podcast and about our guests. Also, you can contribute at anchor.fm/a very special show. Our guest next week Mark Ciano, Seattle composer, musical director, all-around talent. Don't miss that next Wednesday, June 17th at 7 p.m.